The album Thriller became a huge hit, reaching #1 in the United States and the United Kingdom at the same time. It remained in the top 10 in the US Billboard chart for an entire year. An incredible 7 of the 9 songs were top 10 singles. Michael's ability to fuse different musical influences was unique.
He was drawing from such a rich, diverse background. So he was fusing things that normally wouldn't be fused. It's one thing for Michael to be mimicking James Brown. It's another thing for Michael Jackson to be fusing James Brown with, you know, Fred Astaire or Charlie Chaplin. When you see it in his short films and when you hear it in his music, you can kind of see how he's bringing different elements together.
Today, Thriller retains its position as the world's best-selling record of all time, with an estimated 110 million copies sold worldwide. During the 1980s, Michael Jackson was as famous internationally as many of the world's leading political and religious figures. By the age of only 25, the New York Times summed him up as a musical phenomenon, stating that, in the world of pop music, there is Michael Jackson, and then there's everybody else. Michael Jackson is one of the few artists to have been inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame twice. His awards include 8 Guinness World Records, including one for Thriller as the world's best-selling album, 13 Grammy Awards, and 13 #1 singles in his solo career. Michael was honored with a star on Hollywood Boulevard and received a further accolade when he was presented with the Greatest Artist of the Decade Award by President Bush at the White House. Those who performed or recorded with Michael often spoke of how impressive he was to work with.
Michael was looking for 3 males and a female, and so 4 of us went in together, and the 4 of us had worked together in studio situations before. We had auditioned for him, and we were videotaped, and he liked us. He's completely tuned into what he's doing, as well as being tuned into what you're doing behind him. And that's nice for a singer because he can appreciate what we do because it's what he does. And he has an ear for that, and if you do something that he likes, then he comments on it. And you don't always get that with really big people. You know, he could be just tuned into what he's doing and then split, but he's not. You know, he knows exactly what's going on, and he appreciates what's making his show exactly what he saw in the very beginning.
It was at the 25th anniversary of Motown in 1982 that Michael, singing Billie Jean, unveiled his now famous moonwalk.
He was reinterpreting the song in new ways and allowing people to experience it both sonically and visually.
It received worldwide media coverage. By this time, MTV, which had in the past been reluctant to give airtime to black artists, was scoring its top ratings with Michael's videos. A bizarre firework accident in 1984, when Michael was performing Billie Jean with his 4 brothers for a Pepsi Cola commercial, resulted in Michael suffering second-degree burns to his head. Plastic surgery was required to restore his appearance. Brian Oxman, the Jackson family lawyer, claims the medication prescribed to Michael Jackson during this time led to his long-term addiction to painkillers.
When he burnt his hair at the Pepsi commercial, he started using painkillers then. He then fell from a stage and broke his leg. He also cracked a vertebrae in his back, and those things have caused him terrible pain.
In 1987, the album Bad was released.
Bad is the last of the trilogy produced by Quincy Jones. By the time Bad comes around, Michael's self-image has changed. With Off the Wall, he wanted to make an important hit album. After Off the Wall, he felt the work under-recognized and was hungry for mass acceptance across the pop world. He achieved that with Thriller. So now he's beginning to worry about his personal image. And so he poses on the sleeve of Bad, looking like a tough guy. In that respect, Bad was the beginning of the personality cult of Michael Jackson.
The title track, Bad, was actually intended as a duet with Prince. Michael had already written the song, and Prince really liked it. And Prince said that it'd be a #1 hit, but he felt like it was set up for Michael to win. Because they were going to do this big music video where they're kind of having a dance off and, all this kind of drama to it. So Prince backed out, and Michael ended up doing it as a solo, and it was a #1 hit.
Michael's new edgier look took some admirers by surprise.
The word is mine. Okay, you're right.
It was a huge change for everyone. We couldn't believe his image had changed that much. Gone were the suits, and his hair had like jerry curl, like a wet look. And he had on this leather jacket, with, very rock star. We'd never seen Michael look hard like that, It was like he looked like he was this rock man.
There's a way to find it because I'm bad. I'm bad.
At the time, I have to be honest, when I heard Bad, I was a little bit like, I don't know if I'm feeling him doing that. But what made me change my mind was the video. Because when I saw the video, I was just like, wow, this is great, because they're in the subway. You can't help but watch that. And that made the song better for me, the visual.
By now, Michael Jackson was at the peak of his fame, with the Bad tour attracting huge media attention the world over. Before taking to the stage in the UK, Michael presented Prince Charles and Princess Diana with a £300,000 check from the proceeds of his Wembley concerts for the Prince's Trust, a charity supporting disadvantaged children. Michael presented Princess Diana with 2 custom-made Bad World Tour jackets, one each for her young sons, Prince William and Prince Harry.
In 1988, Michael Jackson set up, built and conceived, I guess, Neverland, which is obviously the place where he would go on to live for most of the rest of his life. Here was a grown man at the peak of his success who felt the need to live in a huge amusement park.
Named after the mythical island in J.M. Barrie's novel Peter Pan, Neverland was Michael's fantasy theme park. It had a zoo, Ferris wheel, and other over-the-top amusements. Built on a 3,000-acre ranch in Santa Barbara, California, Neverland was maintained by 54 full-time staff. It was a child's dream world. Michael even had a pet chimpanzee.
I was invited to Neverland. The gates opened, the wooden gates opened. It's like this yellow brick road, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and Disney World all combined. It was an escape.
There was a time we went over to Neverland. My little girls were about 6 and 7 then, and we spent a week with Michael in Neverland, and we went on all the rides, we went around the zoo, we had our own cinema, we could head to see whatever films we wanted to see. And at the end of the week that we were there, I said to the girls, okay, we've been here for a week. What's the best thing you like about Neverland? And my 2 girls, both at exactly the same time, said, Michael.
This was a man who, having the money to do anything with his property, chose to make it look like a child's home. Obviously, he had created a paradise for children. But not just other children, him, the child, as well.
Michael would invite children, especially sick children, to spend the day there, hoping to create warm childhood memories for his many young visitors.
The thing that struck me about Neverland, it was packed with underprivileged children from around the world. And there was coach loads, and it cost so much millions to run.
Throughout his life, Michael Jackson was a passionate supporter of charity. In 1992, he set up his own charity foundation that he called Heal the World, the name of a track from Dangerous, the album he had just released.
Are we blind to the fact that our children are raging against the indifference, crying out against the abandonment, of thundering against the neglect. Heal the Kids is about doing something about making a difference in trying to help adults and parents realize that it is our power to change the world that our children live in.
He did so much for charity. I mean, this was a tireless giver. He was a total, absolute giver. What they would try to do in the media they would try to say that, you know, his charity ran out of money, and you'd hear stories like that. It's not being run properly. They haven't really gone into how much he has done regarding terminally ill children, cancer-stricken kids. I mean, this is someone who's done so much. You don't see that side of him very often. They don't say much about it in the media, and I think that's sad.
Michael gave so much. I think he's the most generous entertainer that's ever lived. I think that's in the Guinness Book of Records. He's second to Bill Gates as a person for all that he's given.
Michael, it's now my great pleasure to present you with a check for $1 million. This represents the money Pepsi-Cola pledges to raise in Europe this summer, with our best wishes for Heal the World.
In America, the song Black or White was the most successful track from Dangerous.
What people often forget with the Black or White video is that it was Michael's most controversial video, and it was censored. You have this main part of it that most people are familiar with, you know, where it's kind of a celebration of diversity.
And I told about equality, and it's you either you're wrong or you're right.
What happens after the end of the main music video is a Black Panther sneaks off of the stage, and then Michael's conveying kind of the darker side of the song and of racism. And Michael Jackson just unleashes this raw expression of indignation and, you know, conveys violence. He's breaking in windows, you know, there's this like sexuality to it, but it's an aggressive sexuality. And so people didn't know what to make of it.
When we first saw Dangerous and saw Michael's image completely change again, and he had become even whiter, I think everyone was very, very concerned. And everyone was starting to think he didn't like being black anymore. Then he comes out with the song from Dangerous called Black or White, and we suddenly went, oh, for goodness sake, you've gone whiter, and then you've put out a song called Black or White. What's going on here?
Many people thought that Michael Jackson over a period of time had been bleaching his skin. So this was a real statement for him because he was essentially responding to those criticisms through song and saying, why does it matter if I'm black or white?
It's only later on, obviously, way down the road, like, what, 15 years later, you find out that he had vitiligo, which is a serious skin condition where you completely lose pigment.
He definitely had vitiligo, which, you know, the interesting thing about that is that a lot of people didn't believe him, and, you know, it took really until he died and the autopsy report actually indicated that he had vitiligo.
Stars were all about mystery then. It's not like now, where you know everything about an artist. The artist was supposed to be an enigma, and I don't feel that they thought it was the right thing to tell the public what was really going on with Michael.
Imagine being somebody that grows up in front of the world and you have this pretty unusual skin condition and people are saying things like you are ashamed of your race, you know, and you don't want to be black, you're trying to be white.
Michael's appearance had altered so much, it was clear the changes weren't all to do with his skin condition.
If you're going to understand why Michael Jackson would have plastic surgery, you've got to understand that he was a human being. And he was subject to the insecurities that we all have. And when, at an early age, he was frequently criticized by his father, it hurt him. And having been told numerous times his nose was too big, when he could afford to not have it so big, he made it smaller.
All of those experiences when he was young contributed to this kind of desire to change his physical appearance. And he was also an artist, and he kind of began to treat his face as a work of art. You know, he had this kind of various ideals of perfection that he was trying to achieve physically.
Michael Jackson's dramatic change in appearance prompted all sorts of media speculation. There were rumors that he and his sister LaToya were the same person, and that he was trying to make himself look like Diana Ross.
It's been said that Michael Jackson underwent plastic surgery to make himself look more like you.
I don't think so.
Is that true?
No, I don't think he has. No one's ever told me. He's never told me that. I don't think so.
But is it unnerving for you to have a young man that's undergone plastic surgery to make himself look like you?
Well, I don't think he's trying to look like me. I really don't. I think he wants to look like what he perceives as makes him feel happy about himself, you know? I don't think he's trying to look like me. I do think he's quite beautiful, though, by the way.
So many people really don't know him, and they don't give him a chance, and they're so ready to criticize. And I think what happens is when you see genius, and when you see a talent that is just unstoppable and untouchable, the first reaction people have is to criticize it, because it scares them, it threatens them, and it sort of, in order to augment their own self-worth, they feel that they have to belittle him.
Just back up, you get all you want.
In the summer of 1993, Michael Jackson's life was turned upside down when he was accused of sexually abusing a 13-year-old boy. The accusations of child abuse at his Neverland Ranch were immediately denied. The case was settled out of court for a reputed $20 million, and no formal charges were brought.
Now, if this really went on, do you think a father would accept money, that would make it okay, that would make everything all right? It doesn't make any sense. I know that if that were my son, I'm sorry. I don't care if you gave me $1 billion. I want to see you either behind bars or dead for doing that to my son or my daughter. It's crazy. The guy was after money is what he wanted.
It was just after this, in May 1994, that he married Lisa Marie Presley, whose father was one of the few men who could rival Michael's worldwide fame.
The marriage to Lisa Marie Presley was completely fascinating. I mean, it dominated the tabloid agenda both in the UK and in the US. Here was the biggest music star of the last decade, undisputedly, marrying the daughter of the biggest music star of all time, Elvis Presley. At the time he was in the midst of these allegations, all of a sudden people were very, very concerned about the way that he looked. He was incredibly gaunt, incredibly white, looked surgically enhanced and not in a good way. So why would this young, beautiful, up-and-coming daughter of a famous celebrity decide to enter into this marriage?
Someone who's Michael Jackson, the biggest star in the world, he can't really just walk down the road and go out with anyone, can he? I mean, you've got to think about it. His demographic would have to be someone like, you know, Lisa. I think that's probably why, in his mind, it would have been okay, because she would get his level of fame and notoriety and everything else.
I mean, it was completely fascinating, and I think to this day, no one really knows what the situation was between Michael Jackson and Lisa Marie Presley. She hasn't spoken about it much, and it was a very bizarre chapter in both of their lives.
Despite media speculation about the credibility of the relationship, Lisa Marie and Michael publicly denounced rumors and declared their love was genuine. The marriage was short-lived and ended on amicable terms in 1996. Within a year of the separation, Michael's association with his dermatologist's assistant, Deborah Rowe, led to an announcement that she was pregnant with his first child.
Michael had wanted kids for a long time. In fact, he wanted kids with Lisa Marie Presley, which is one of the reasons why they got a divorce. And with Debbie Rowe, she came to Michael and said that she would give him a child. And that she would essentially be a surrogate mother and provide Michael what he always wanted, which was to have children.
Soon after this, the couple were married in Australia. Deborah gave birth to a son, Prince Michael Jackson Jr., followed by a daughter, Paris Michael Catherine. But the relationship was not to last. By autumn 1999, the couple announced their intention to divorce, with full custody of the children going to Michael. In 2002, Michael announced the birth of another son, Prince Michael II, also known as Blanket, and to this day, the mother's name remains a mystery.
Another day is gone. I'm still all alone.
The single, You Are Not Alone, from Michael's album History, released in 1995, remains commercially one of Michael Jackson's most successful songs.
Never said goodbye.
The lyrics to You Are Not Alone, from his first album since the child sex abuse allegations, managed to link the incidents of Michael's recent past and media obsession with him with a feeling of isolation.
Every day I say it, ask myself, how did I slip away?
You Are Not Alone is one of those songs that can be interpreted in a variety of ways. I think a lot of people, when they heard it, interpreted it as a love song. But it was also a song where it conveyed a certain degree of isolation, the toll of a life in the spotlight.
Though you're far away, I'm here to stay.
It was a real Michael Jackson ballad in the true sense of the word. And it did become a huge hit for him, I guess really against all odds, because the music video was incredibly strange. I mean, it featured Michael Jackson almost naked under the sheets with his wife, Lisa Marie Presley. And it was a very odd music video, but the song has been one of Michael's most enduring yet.
I'm here to stay. You're always alone in my heart.
Michael's music was increasingly dealing with the world issues he saw as important.
You start to see with the Dangerous album, with the History album, a lot of the songs, it's no longer about relationships or dancing. Michael's tackling big social themes.
It was very interesting actually, because the release of History did not go down well. It was a greatest hits package combined with a new album, and there are a whole load of stunts which were really derided. For example, Michael Jackson deciding to send a massive statue of himself down the River Thames in London, despite him being still caught up in all of these allegations of child abuse. But actually, I always felt like History was probably his most underrated album ever. I mean, some of the songs to come from History are completely iconic. They Don't Really Care About Us, Earth Song, Scream, You Are Not Alone. It was a huge album, but by that point, it almost didn't matter what Michael Jackson released. There were enough questions about him as a person that actually his music was again overshadowed.
All through his life, the more Michael tried to protect his privacy, the more fascinated the press became with him, and the more absurd the stories became.
99.9% of what's written about him was false. I read that his nose went missing. I think it was in the Daily Mirror. It's absolutely crazy. But I think what it is that perhaps there's an ounce of truth in what's written, but it's totally embellished.
You know what the media is like. It's called propaganda. They take anything and they blow it out. We're family. You saw the way we grew up in the two-bedroom house. Family is more important than all the success in anything, and we're always going to hold on to that. Their whole thing is to divide and conquer and to separate us. We're family. We're family. We have children. We hurt just like everyone else.
He was very hurt by the misreportings in the press, but I think his defense mechanism was not to read them. Don't let it, they're going to say whatever they're going to say anyway, so just don't read, don't get involved with it. Because I said to him one day, I said, well, why don't you just sue them? And he said, Mark, if I was to sue everyone that wrote something about me that was untrue, I'd be in court every single day. So it just wasn't worth it for him, so he just decided to let it go.
In 2001, Invincible became the last album of new material that Michael Jackson released during his lifetime. Though it received mixed reviews and suffered from the fallout of a dispute with Sony, it still managed to make it to #1 in 11 countries, including the US. But as time went on, Michael's life as a musician was almost eclipsed by the endless gossip surrounding his lifestyle. Curiosity and controversy were his constant companions. An incident in 2002, which was circulated around the world, showed Michael holding his baby out of a Berlin hotel window. for his chanting fans to see. It created uproar.
I was in the room when it happened. When I saw it on the camera, I thought, oh God, that looks really awful. But actually below the window of the hotel is a ledge that comes out quite a way. And if Michael had held the baby quite firmly anyway, and it was just a gesture to say, look, this is my new child, you know, and then he got absolutely slammed for it. But that baby was in no danger at all, ever. And in fact, when we didn't think anything of it until after he'd done it and the fans were all clapping and cheering until the next day when it came out in the papers, and then I saw the news clip and I thought, well, yeah, that does look a bit scary.
It was foolhardy. Therefore, we must ask ourselves, why did he do it? And the answer is that the feelings he had, which motivated him to do it, were greater than even his concern for the child. And that is, I want to present to you my new cub. As in The Lion King at the beginning, the circle of life, when the new cub is held up. Of course, in this case, it happened to be over the balcony, which was really dumb. But he didn't think about that. I'm sure he didn't look down and think, oh, is there a balcony there or not? He was just holding the kid up.
The incident naturally led to all sorts of speculation in the press about Michael's abilities as a father. Much worse was to come.